President Macky Sall favoured to win re-election in Senegal. Arab League and EU leaders meet at a summit in Egypt. And vote counting is underway despite hitches in some polling stations in Nigeria. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. In business, Egypt set to become a key gas exporter in North Africa. And in sports, coach Desiree Ellis speaks on becoming the first woman to lead South Africa's Banyana Banyana to a World Cup appearance. Well, we start the hour in Senegal, where vote counting is underway in the country's presidential elections. With two democratic transitions of power and no coup since independence in 1960, Senegal is considered one of the most stable countries in Africa. President Macky Sall is favoured to win re-election. Prime Minister Mohamed Dionne says preliminary results are suggesting that Sall has already secured the majority vote needed for victory. But rival candidates have warned against declaring results prematurely. The official results are due to be announced by Friday. And if no candidate wins a clear majority, the country will go to a second round of voting on the 24th of March.
By compiling the results from the local authorities of Senegal, today we can expect a minimum of 57% for the candidate, President Macky Sall. And I would like to congratulate in the name of the people of Senegal, in the name of the great coalition of the presidential majority, the Benno Bokk Yakaar coalition, our candidate, and I'm sure that as soon as tomorrow, he will go back to continue with this important work of leading this country on the path of emergence.
Notre candidat.
Meanwhile, opposition candidates in Senegal have contested President Macky Sall's claim of victory. Idrissa Seck and Ousmane Sonko have said that the results compiled so far indicate that there will be a second round of voting.
Opposition candidates in Senegal have condemned President Macky Sall for declaring himself winner of the 2019 vote.
We have come to say clearly and firmly that at this stage, there appears to be a second round, and the results that are already compiled will allow us to say so.
At the current stage of the vote and the tally, no candidate, I say clearly, no candidate, myself included, can proclaim themselves the winner of this presidential election.
They spoke shortly before Prime Minister Mohamed Boun Abdallah Dionne announced Macky Sall had won 57% of the vote. Official results are due by March 1st at the latest, with a runoff for the top two on March 24th if no one secures a majority. Laura Walubengo, CGTN.
Well, CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa has been following the voting process in Senegal. She joins us now live from the country's capital, Dakar. Wilkista, of course, voting took place yesterday. Just talk us through how the process went. Were there any major issues reported?
Thank you, Lindy. Well, I can say that the voting and the process here has been largely uneventful. Yesterday, the polls did open at roughly the time they were supposed to open. Some of them opened right at 8 a.m. as they were supposed to. Others were slightly later because they were still organizing and just bringing out the material. But apart from that, there doesn't seem to have been much of an issue. Voters went in to cast their votes peacefully and were able to leave, and later in the day we did actually see that they just resumed normal life, resumed in the afternoon. People opened their businesses. It seemed to have been just a very, very uneventful exercise. Lindy.
That's almost exactly what you want to hear when it comes to voting. But talk us through the vote counting now, Wilkista. Just give us an update on how far along that process is.
Well, the moment the polls closed yesterday, the counting began immediately because the counting began at the polling stations, and then the results are to be remitted to the National Elections Commission. So yesterday by evening, a number of them had started counting and we're already remitting their results. And so we are still waiting for an update today as the National Elections Body collates those numbers. So we will be waiting for that. However, in an interesting development, we have seen that the Prime Minister has declared that Macky Sall has already secured at least 57% of the votes. This is a number that cannot be confirmed yet, given that we haven't gotten the total numbers, how many stations have already completed counting, and how many more are expected to complete counting today. So this is a number that we can't quite confirm, but it is a number that has also been disputed by other candidates. The rest of Senegal seems to just be in waiting mode, because we can see that we are right in the heart of the capital and life has gone on. Businesses have opened, people have gone to work as usual. They are waiting for the electoral body to give the provisional results, and this was scheduled to be done by the 26th, which is tomorrow, 2 days after the elections. They should be giving the provisional results, and then on Friday they will give the final results. So far it's just wait and see from our end to see what the elections body says.
All right, well, thank you so much, Wilkista Nyabwa, joining us there live from Dakar, Senegal. Now, moving to North Africa, around 20 Arab and European leaders have gathered in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, for the first League of Arab States European Union Summit. The two-day meeting will be looking into cooperation between the two regional bodies in resolving conflicts and boosting economic ties. Here's Adel Al-Mahroui with more.
European leaders have come here to Sharm el-Sheikh to open a new medium of collaborative framework with the Arab world. Entitled Investing in Stability, leaders of both regions are prepared to discuss all sensitive files.
I hope that the summit manages to focus on our partnership when it comes to economic relations, when it comes to our common work, for instance, on Palestine and peace between Israel and Palestine and between Israel and the Arab world, revitalizing the two-state solution, but also a common approach, I hope, on the conflict in Syria, on the conflict in Yemen, to try and have a full implementation of the Stockholm agreements, and a common work on Libya.
Egypt says the summit will not abide to a restricted number of topics. It wants to encourage open and transparent dialogue during the first of its kind opportunity that brings European and Arab leaders together.
There is a true desire among the 28 European countries participating and the 22 Arab countries. There is a desire to make this summit a real beginning towards stability and strong development in the Arab region with the cooperation with the EU. EU felt the dangers that emerges from the lack of development in this part of the world.
Europe will be investigating opportunities to invest tens of millions of dollars in the next 5 years, aiming to create around 10 million jobs in the Arab world. Egypt has been privileged to host the first League of Arab States European Union Summit, an attempt from Europe and the Arab world to cooperate in resolving regional crisis as they fuel illegal migration and terrorists and other threats to Europe. Adel Al-Mahroui, CGTN, Sharm el-Sheikh.
Well, let's go live now to Sharm el-Sheikh for the very latest on the summit. We're joined, of course, by CGTN's Adel Al-Mahroui. Adel, of course, the European leaders are in Sharm el-Sheikh to meet the leaders of the Arab world. This meeting, of course, is the first of its kind. Just talk us through some of the key issues on the agenda.
Well, migration and terrorism have been quite a redundant or a repetitive, topic along the talks of the leaders. There is a great focus on both files as they represent the main threats that comes from North African side and the rest of the Arab world towards Europe. And the situation itself is they are investigating what are more of a long-standing permanent solutions that would help help eradicate these threats or help both Europe and the Arab world to fight these rising threats. There's several challenges that they're speaking on, and it is all interlinked to regional conflicts, as you've heard Mogherini say in my report. And this is basically what the both worlds are trying to discuss and reach. They understand there is huge differences in terms of principles and even a desired solution in the countries that are seeing conflicts here in the Middle East. But they're trying to reach on commonalities between them, trying to figure out what will encourage both Europeans and Arabs together, that will shape these solutions for the destabilized regions, namely in Yemen and Syria and Libya. This is where the main concern is coming from both leaders of both worlds.
And just tell us more about the Arab world perspective in all of this. Adel, of course, when you look at migration, it seems that Europe is concerned about its particular interests. But why is this meeting so important for the leaders of the Arab world?
It's the first of its kind to exclusively bring European and Arab leaders together. That's why it's quite critical. It's an approach that shows the weight and the importance of the Arab world to Europe. And it's going to be a triennial meeting. It will happen every 3 years at least. This is the initial hope from the meetings, that every 3 years one of the two regions will be hosting this summit. And it's an attempt to increase talks and dialogues. There are concerns from the Arab world on the European aspirations in the Arab world, specifically in terms of what kind of democracies and freedoms they want to see in the Arab world, and they want to see in the troubled areas or the conflicts, the zones of conflicts in this region. So these are points that have been quite sort of a points of discussion about how to reach such solutions without clashing the desires of the Arab world for its own stability and its own independent rule in these nations without interference from Europe and other international powers. And what they do understand is that the continuation, the longer these crises stretch, then it means that the more instability would not just affect the Arab world but Europe as well. So for the Arab world, it's a recognition to their efforts and a recognition that they have support from Europe to reach solutions in somewhat a desirable way for most Arab countries in these conflicts.
And Adel, of course, boosting economic ties also on the agenda. What kind of investment deals are we expecting from this summit?
Well, the summit itself is not expected to reveal business deals. However, they are discussing investment in general as the presumed solution to create stability in the region, creating jobs and therefore decrease the unemployment rates, which is tremendously high in the Arab world, and therefore would be a preventive measure, in the opinion of the leaders, in the recruitment of terrorist and extremist groups for unemployed youth. And this is one of the main factors. There have been talks about investments for up to $70 billion in the Arab world. Earlier, European Union leaders have been talking about that sum to create 10 million jobs in the next 5 years. But it is not still clear how it will happen, which countries from Europe will invest in which countries in the Arab world. But what is quite clear is that they want to engage citizens and youth specifically in the countries within the conflict zones and neighboring countries to these conflict zones. There's also aspirations to invest in Arab countries' security, to help them, to help Europe out in picking up migrants and restoring them back or sending them back to the African mainland instead of becoming Europe's responsibility. So, and business-wise and security-wise, there is an understanding that investments needs to be done, but specifics, I think, will come to each individual country from Europe and from the Arab world to work on the best scenario that suits it.
Thank you so much, Adel Al-Makhraoui, joining us there from Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Vote counting is underway despite hitches in some polling stations in Nigeria. And Egypt celebrates the successful launch of its newest satellites. How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. My home country lies at the foot of Africa, the southernmost tip of our beautiful continent, and the unique point at which two great oceans meet. Now on a clear day in Cape Town, you can just make out Robben Island, the place where Nelson Mandela was jailed for so long. South Africa has changed so much in the years since then, but it is this country's history that shaped me and took me into reporting. I'm inspired by Africa's men and women of courage. It's the everyday hero who brings out my passion. The creatives, the decision makers, the risk takers who are shaping a bright African future. I see them in Cape Town. I see them in the pulsating city of Johannesburg. I see them across the continent, and I know our time has come. CGTN is a platform where African voices can speak for themselves and take their stories to the world. My name is Lindy Mtongana, and I'm a news anchor and reporter for CGTN. Africa Live. Find your voice. We start in Nigeria now, where voting was extended in many polling stations in the country, where the exercise started late and some technical failures were reported. CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam has more.
Chaotic scenes playing out at this polling station in the outskirts of the Nigerian capital, Abuja. Polling officers besieged by voters determined to cast their ballots several hours past voting time. Most of them waited here from dawn. We're told voting at this polling station started 5 hours late.
They say 8 o'clock, and they did not start this thing 8 o'clock. They started around 2:30. You see, so 2:30 to 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock, they have open road. So nobody can vote. Many people did not vote. If they say majority have voted, it's a lie. Many people did not vote. Since 2 a.m. I've been here, I've never gone to my house.
73 million eligible voters are participating in the elections to elect a president and lawmakers for the next 4 years. More than 10,000 of them are registered in this polling station. Most of them say they were not able to vote. They blame the Electoral Commission.
We have more than 13,000 registered voters here. How can you create a unit, a polling unit, and give it to 13,000 people? One, there is no sincerity, there is no commitment, and there is no show of concern from the government.
The Electoral Commission is already facing criticism for delaying the elections by 1 week. President Muhammadu Buhari, who's seeking a second term in office, has rejected the Electoral Commission's explanations for postponing the elections. He wants the commission investigated. There are 73 presidential candidates, but President Muhammadu Buhari and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar are seen as the likely winners of a tightly contested election. Whoever emerges winner will have a tough job of rebuilding Africa's largest economy battered by the 2016 recession. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Well, CGTN's Phil Ihaza has been following the voting process for us. He joins us live from the capital, Abuja. Phil, despite having a whole extra week to prepare for elections, it appears the Electoral Commission couldn't quite prevent some voting delays and technical failures on Saturday. Just talk us through the challenges faced on voting day.
Well, Ms. Drado, unfortunate, if I must say, what happened on Saturday, the 23rd of February. In fact, it is more disappointing because the elections were rescheduled a week before as a result of logistic and operational challenges faced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. And then, of course, within that 1 week, there was a lot of assurances given by the Commission that all of those issues have been taken care of. But to our greatest surprise, on the D-Day on Saturday, February 23rd, there were quite a number of challenges. In fact, in over 8,000 polling units out of the roughly estimated 120,000 polling units, elections were not possible in those places, and that's as a result of quite a number of issues like card reader failures, logistic challenges where personnel and materials did not arrive at the polling stations, and also cases where the electorates did not find their names on the register, even if they were, with their permanent voter card. So some of these issues, the INEC has come out during a press briefing yesterday to say that they have acknowledged those issues and they are indeed working on it.
So what does that mean exactly when they say they're working on it? It's very worrying to hear that at least 8,000 voting stations weren't able to hold elections. How is INEC going to ensure that ultimately the results that they present truly do reflect the will of Nigerians?
Okay, so at the press briefing, the INEC chairman, that's Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, also noted that as far as the commission has identified those polling stations, they have also gone ahead to reprogram quite a number of card readers to ensure that elections hold at those centers. In fact, he extended the voting process in those areas from Saturday even until now. I'm sure that some other polling stations might still be going through those process, but many others have been concluded and the results are yet to be collated in their various local government areas and state level. Residential Electoral Commission. Now, the way it works is the Residential Electoral Commission office, rather commissioners in those states would have to put all those results together in the different polling units or polling stations in the state and then travel to the federal capital, Abuja here, where all of the results from the 36 states and capital will be declared or read out by the commission officially. But so far we've been getting quite a number of results, but we cannot lay claim to those ones until it is declared by the commission. And that's the reason we're seeing some certain level of delays in the results collation and declaration by the commission. But we hope that at the end it will reflect the true state or desire of the Nigerian people.
And as these results start trickling in, Phil, do you foresee any challenges or any disputes to the final results?
Well, talking about disputes, for example, the results are not expected until, say, late Monday, which is today, or tomorrow at the latest. But talking about disputes, if it depends on the margin of the results. If the margin is quite huge, you might not see a lot of disputes because whoever loses might want to lay claim to those areas where there was violence, where elections did not hold, to make a case that those results also might influence the results. But if the margin is good enough, I mean, it will be an outright victory for whoever comes out. But with what we've seen so far, it pretty looks like a tight race between the ruling APC and the opposition PDP in talking about the presidential race. But we may just have to keep our fingers crossed and hope to see that either of the winner or loser accept the results and move on for democracy to thrive in Nigeria.
Absolutely. And Phil, just one last question. Reports coming in that as many as 39 people have been killed in election violence in Nigeria. What can you tell us about this?
Yes, well, we've gotten quite a number of those reports. So, for example, the INEC chairman at the press briefing yesterday stated that when asked, he said they're only aware of one person, one INEC officer dead in Rivers State, shot dead, a lady actually, one of the INEC officials, senior INEC officials in the state as a result of political thugs that invaded one of the voting centers. But then we've also gotten quite a number of reports from state governors like the Delta State governor confirming the death of one person there. It might not be in one location, but in River State, we've gotten unofficial reports from several parts of the state where violence took place, and then of course in Lagos and in some other quarters, especially in the southern part of the country. And it is rather surprising because going into the elections, many thought that the northern part of the country that have faced insecurity at this time might be the one to have those kind of issues, but it is surprising to see that it is happening in the south, and that's so far how we've gotten those reports as it is.
Phil Ihaza, thank you so much joining us there live from Abuja. Now, Egypt celebrated the successful launch of its newest satellites this weekend. EgyptSat-A is an imaging satellite with advanced remote sensing features. It has an estimated orbiting lifetime of 11 years. Cairo is hoping to become a leading country in space technology in Africa. Adel Al-Mahri has more.
From a Russian space base in Kazakhstan, Egypt has successfully witnessed the launch of its latest satellite. After 80 minutes, it reached its trajectory to orbit. EgyptSat-A is the most advanced imaging and remote sensing addition to its technological power.
Egypt has a program of peaceful use of space technologies and power. Egypt has several satellites which have created a greater infrastructure of facilities and engineers. Egypt Nile-Sat-A is an addition that will boost our knowledge in space sciences. It is a very advanced satellite in the field of remote sensing.
The satellite can take up to 40 pictures daily of objects as small as 1 meter long with great resolution. It has the ability to scan Egypt's 1 million square meters area more than once every 24 hours. That gives the country a great military advantage in monitoring its borders and terrain.
The satellite covers most regions in the world in the range between longitudinal lines 51.6 north and south. There are great economic benefits that will help in national planning. It can be used to precisely plan and specify lands suitable for numerous usages. It can monitor desertification, environmental changes, or violations of construction that can now be watched and monitored on a daily basis.
Egypt has been lately seeing an awakening in space technologies that has made the AU entrusted to host the African Space Agency. An Egyptian space city is under construction, which will include control centers and facilities to manufacture satellites locally.
We don't want to pay money and purchase satellites. We want a real transfer of technology and train calibers that can in the future fulfill our vision, which is to manufacture a full satellite with all of its components. The Egyptian Space Agency is being built with a collaboration with China. There is a grant from the Chinese Space Agency to train Egyptians there.
In 2015, and just after 1 year orbiting space, Cairo lost its remote sensing satellite EgyptSat-2. Russia has compensated Egypt with $100 million, which were used to build EgyptSat-A. It's Egypt's 11th satellite.
Egypt's Nilesat-A has been celebrated in the country as a great addition to its hopeful space program, with which Cairo aims to become a leading city in space technologies in Africa and the Middle East. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And turning to international news now, Vietnam's Dong Dang border has been closed to the public and is now under armored guard. This comes as the country prepares for the arrival of DPRK leader Kim Jong-un, who's making his way to Vietnam for a summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. Once he's over the border, he'll travel to the nation's capital, Hanoi, by road. Trump is expected to arrive tomorrow evening. Vietnam says it's doing all it can to ensure the success of the summit. And turning to the latest on the Venezuela crisis, an emergency meeting of the Lima Group is taking place in the Colombian capital of Bogota. The group is a bloc of mostly conservative Latin American countries plus Canada. They have been supporting the Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido, who will be at the gathering and will also meet with the American Vice President Mike Pence. Venezuela's information minister has accused Guaido of agreeing to hand over the country's oil reserves to Washington.
¿O es que tú crees, Guaidó?
Guaido,
Do you really think that Trump is going to let you rule alone? You are what you are, a puppet. Do you think that Trump is not going to get his hands on Venezuelan oil? It's not that you don't believe it, it's that you know it. You made an agreement already. You already handed it over.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Juan Guaido says he is prepared to look for peaceful solutions to solve his country's political crisis.
We asked that all the cards remain on the table. In addition, I announced that Monday I will participate in that summit to discuss possible diplomatic solutions and possible actions to cooperate in a cooperative way, a sovereign way, as every one of the countries should be, with respect for the Constitution so as to advance on these topics.
Recapping your top stories this hour. Vote counting is underway in Senegal's presidential election. Incumbent President Macky Sall is favored to win re-election. Prime Minister Mahamat Dionne says preliminary results are suggesting that Sall has already secured the majority vote needed for victory. But rival candidates have warned against declaring results prematurely. Official results are due on Friday. Around 20 Arab and European leaders have gathered in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt for the first League of Arab States European Union Summit. The two-day event will look into cooperation between the regional bodies in resolving conflicts and boosting economic ties. Voting was extended in many polling stations in Nigeria, where the exercise started late and some technical failures were reported. The Electoral Commission is facing criticism for delaying the elections by a week, and President Muhammadu Buhari, who is seeking a second term in office, has rejected the Commission's explanations for postponing the vote. And in Venezuela, an emergency meeting of the Lima Group is taking place today in the Colombian capital of Bogota. The group is a bloc of conservative Latin American countries plus Canada. They've been supporting the Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido, who will be at the gathering and will meet with the American Vice President Mike Pence. Venezuela's information minister has accused Guaido of agreeing to hand over the country's oil reserves to Washington. And those are your top stories this hour. Coming up in your business news. Egypt set to become a key gas exporter in North Africa. And Chinese tech giant Huawei launches its first 5G foldable smartphone.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
will come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice. In your business news, Egypt is becoming a hub for natural gas in the East Mediterranean thanks to the latest discoveries such as the Zohr gas field, one of the largest of its kind in the world. Most of the excavations in Egypt have taken place in the Mediterranean Sea. However, oil companies working in the country announced that tests showed huge reserves can be found in other areas. Yasser Hakim has the details.
Developments are taking place quickly for Egypt in the natural gas industry. In 2 years, it has turned from an importer to an exporter of natural gas. That's owed to huge discoveries in the Mediterranean Sea, such as the Zohr and Noor gas fields, with reserves that exceed 90 trillion cubic feet. And the latest seismic tests have shown even more reserves in other areas.
Seismic tests show that the reserves are about 200 trillion cubic feet, not only in the East Mediterranean, but in the Red Sea and the Western Desert. This is logical because Libya is full of oil and Saudi Arabia has huge oil reserves and we're in the middle. But why now? We've always had an abundance of natural resources. The difference is that the current officials now know how to encourage companies to invest and excavate in Egypt and have offered them incentives that are based on a win-win situation.
In 2018, Egypt reopened its 2 LNG plants in Edfu and Damietta in a bid to become a regional hub for natural gas.
The 2 plants each can produce 1 billion cubic feet of LNG per day, so 2 billion for both is a huge quantity. Edfu and Damietta plants would liquefy gas imported from Israel and Cyprus and then re-export it for the profit.
Being self-sufficient, the government will save $2.5 billion worth of imported gas every year. Natural gas is seen as a major component of the latest economic growth, from 2.5% to 5% in 2018. A sign of the continuous growth in this sector is that this month, 6 major international oil companies have been awarded concessions in 15 new gas and oil fields around the country. Yas Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
The Abidjan Autonomous Port Canal has been officially inaugurated in the Ivorian capital. Built by China, the canal, also known as the Vridi Canal, will now enable the port of Abidjan to dock new generation vessels and improve the safety and security of navigation in the canal. Estimated at around $250 million, the widening and dredging of the Vridi Canal is also a way for the Ivorian authorities to demonstrate the port's ability to consolidate its position as the leading sub-regional port. The new canal will increase annual imports at the port of Abidjan by more than 15,000 tons.
This will enable the economic and trade ties between the 2 countries to steadily grow, explore new opportunities for cooperation in all areas, and also strengthen synergies between the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative and the Côte d'Ivoire Development Plan. China wants to carry on supporting Côte d'Ivoire on its way to emergence.
The restructuring of the Vridi Canal is a variable development instrument with high added value for the Ivorian government. It also serves as a tool to bring people closer together. This project consolidates the ties between Côte d'Ivoire and its partners across the sub-region and the world. It is the right moment to commend the excellent collaboration between Côte d'Ivoire and the People's Republic of China.
Latest Brexit news now. Prime Minister Theresa May says that Britain and the European Union have made good progress in the latest round of talks, adding that a deal is still within grasp so Britain can leave the bloc as planned by March 29th. May also said she is rather close to bringing home changes to her agreement that would satisfy objections to it, but needed time for meetings with European leaders. The British Parliament voted against May's deal in January, a defeat by the biggest margin in modern British history. May says she still can win support for the deal if EU leaders ease rules intended to ensure no hard land border ever appears between British-ruled Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland. EU officials have considered many theoretical scenarios, including an extension of Brexit for up to 2 years, though it is unclear if such a delay would resolve the current impasse. The EU has ruled out reopening the withdrawal agreement.
Of course, I'm going to have the opportunity while I'm here, although this is not principally a summit about Brexit, but I will have the opportunity to speak to fellow European leaders. And we've made good progress with the European Union and with the Commission. We won't be bringing a meaningful vote back this week, but we will make sure that that happens by the 12th of March. It is still within our grasp to have a deal with the European Union that enables us to leave on the 29th of March with a deal.
Huawei has unveiled its first foldable 5G smartphone in Barcelona to kick things off at this year's Mobile World Congress. The Huawei Mate X takes the opposite approach to the Samsung Galaxy Fold, placing the foldable display on the outside of the device. CGTN's Filio Contrafuri reports from Barcelona.
There's been a lot of talk and hype about foldable phones even ahead of this year's Mobile World Congress here in Barcelona. Huawei's launch of its 5G foldable phone called Mate X is heating up the competition to see who gets ahead in the smartphone advanced technology market. The Chinese tech giant claims Mate X is the world's fastest and slimmest 5G smartphone that can, for example, download a 1 GB movie in 3 seconds. It's a device that can fold into a slim 6.6-inch smartphone and unfold into an 8-inch tablet. Huawei said its engineers have been working for 3 years on this phone. The phone will be available in the middle of the year for a whopping price of about $2,600. Mate X is launched just days after Huawei's rival Samsung announced the Samsung Fold, a foldable device which will sell for close to $2,000. And while the phones are capturing the headlines, at least here in Barcelona, industry analysts and others are concerned about how these phones can be broadly available with such a high price tag. Now, a little earlier, I spoke with Huawei's head for consumer business in Western Europe, Walter G., who told me that he expects in the next 2 to 3 years, this device will become quite popular, so its price will go down dramatically. Filio Contrafuri, CGTN, Barcelona.
The International Women Entrepreneur Council is set to hold its forum in Abidjan. The forum will combine conferences, exhibitions and B2B meetings involving specialists and entrepreneurs from across Africa. The Tunisian bank, STB, is discussing the possibility of opening financing lines for women entrepreneurs with international and regional donors.
A delegation of over 40 Tunisian women entrepreneurs operating in various fields will participate in the 5th edition of the annual forum of the International Women Entrepreneur Council, CIF, in Côte d'Ivoire, on the theme Digital Transformation, a growth opportunity for women entrepreneurs in Africa.
This Fast African mission of CIF aims through this forum to lay a platform for sharing and cooperation among African women, raise awareness about the digital revolution and shed light on business opportunities among women entrepreneurs in the continent.
The Tunisian bank STB and the Tunisian Post are the financial sponsors of this forum. The two state-owned institutions will also be the financiaries of the potential partnership projects that could result from the forum.
Having the STB and the Tunisian Post as financial partners is a chance for women entrepreneurs wishing to invest in African countries, financing being an essential pillar of sustainable investments. The presence of STB in Africa through its participation in the Nigerian bank company Sonybank will help support Tunisian women entrepreneurs in their quest for the African market.
Businesswomen pointed out that the city of Abidjan has been selected to host the first exploration mission of CIF because it is a real door for sub-Saharan Africa opening on the various African markets.
There are over 20,000 women entrepreneurs in Tunisia, and the partnership opportunities that Côte d'Ivoire and the African market offer for these women are enormous. Digitization is a vector of growth and competitiveness that will consolidate exchanges between women entrepreneurs on the continent.
The Tunisian government has called on women entrepreneurs to make the most of the public guarantee and support mechanisms for the internationalization of companies available in the North African state.
The Tunisia Africa Business Council's Academy has planned a training session next month for investors and women entrepreneurs seeking to access the African markets. This training will focus on economic intelligence and the most investment mobilizing fields. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
And time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. Hundreds attend post-Chinese New Year festivities in Johannesburg.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
To South Africa, Johannesburg has a very active Chinese community, and local Chinese New Year celebrations often continue for a few weeks after New Year's Day. This weekend, Joburg's city centre came alive as fireworks lit the sky in celebration of the Year of the Pig. Hundreds attended the colourful festivities. CGTN's Yulisan Jamela reports.
Spectacular fireworks were on display. Hundreds of Joburg residents came to celebrate the Chinese New Year. The air was filled with excitement as people watched various performances. Chinese New Year is one of the most important of the holidays for the Chinese. And Joburg has joined other cities across the world to commemorate the important day.
I think Joburg must be the example of Africa. It's a wonderful, a melting pot of different cultures. Of course, this is the Chinese New Year celebration. I've been to so many, but this one has got its historical meaning. And we are just very grateful that the Chinese community, every year, without fail, put on this wonderful, wonderful cultural event for all the residents of the city of Johannesburg.
Performances included dragon and lion dance. For some here, it's an opportunity to learn about the Chinese culture, while for others, it's for the spectacular displays.
And I just love this place. You get such a mix of diversity of people. You get to mingle with everyone. You see your old friends from Chinese school. So, it just makes me proud.
Food is always great, and I've always known Chinese people in the food trade that I grew up with, South African Chinese. And they've always been great, pleasant people.
I come to this event every year because Chinese people get together, we watch fireworks, we see people we haven't seen in a year. And it's a great celebration and everybody can come and enjoy it.
So I'm really excited to be here and see the fireworks. I'm here mostly for the fireworks. Everyone loves it, everyone is having festivities together, and it's just great.
I like to meet people of different cultures, celebrating one thing.
So we used to come here as children many, many years ago with my parents. I'm 53 years old. I was probably 10 when I used to come here. And we grew up with people that owned shops here. We went to school with them. So the diversity is just really cool. So that's why we come back.
The food is fantastic. The atmosphere is great. I mean, you can listen to the music. It's just insane. The people, the balloons, it's just fantastic.
For many others, coming to this festival has become an annual ritual.
This is one of the many events planned around the country to celebrate the Chinese New Year. Yulisan Jamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A Sudanese photographer has launched an exhibition to coincide with 60 years of Sudanese-Chinese relations. Hag Allah al-Sheikh showcased his pictures, most of which were inspired by China's beautiful scenery. Al-Sheikh visited China and toured a number of cities and provinces, including Beijing, Shanghai and Guangzhou.
Many thanks to the Embassy of China in Khartoum and the Journalists Union, which allowed us to visit China. Thank God I visited the biggest tourist cities in China, Shangdao and Shanghai. It's a very good opportunity for a person to see. Through the camera aesthetics and the greatness of China, one of the most beautiful images I have ever seen was one of the Great Wall. The impression is excellent. The pictures themselves express that I was very impressed when taking pictures. In the city of Shanghai, it was raining and I was still taking pictures, and the photos were beautiful and I'm satisfied with them. Despite the short time, I was very keen because I promised the embassy that after I return, I will present the China Expo with Sudanese eyes.
Coming up in your sports news. Coach Desiree Ellis speaks on becoming the first woman to lead South Africa's Banyana Banyana to a World Cup appearance.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal,